surprising.
I know. I looked to make sure. I even asked Joe if I had missed anything. He didn't see anything either. So yeah, it's been quiet in Albany. We've been on vacation.
Well, the conference is coming up.
So yeah, they're all prepping.
Maybe
for
they're
the
prepping for the
conference. That's right.
conference.
Okay then. We've got eligible a list to approve. Do we, I always forget, need a motion to approve them or just the signatures? I'll move that we approve both of them.
Okay.
And then we can sign them.
And then you can sign them. That's good. I will just make note that the records management clerk results are resolving one of our provisionals. So
Oh, good.
Tim Puzo was our provisional, and I will send paperwork to appoint him permanently tomorrow.
Okay. 70 is the passing score.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
One step closer to that 7% provisional.
That's right.
Target. Good. And everybody on this library list is now reachable, is that correct? Is it all in the top three?
That is correct. Yep, the entire list is reachable, and once again, Tina is ready to move forward, so I will present her with a certified eligible list. We're not even gonna canvass. I'm just gonna certify the whole list and give her all the applications, and let her sort it out from there, so.
Good. So that is done.
Yep.
Exam status is there. Are there highlights that you would like to touch on?
The only two things I highlighted were the newly ordered ones, which is Business Manager 1, which is a position that's basically the equivalent of the CFO for the school district. They are actively recruiting that position right now, and we will hold the test as soon as it's scheduled. So
Current business manager's retiring?
yes, yep,
She is?
yep. Not at the end of the school year, but I believe it was 6 months after the end of the beginning of the next school year. So
That's the end of this year, probably.
yeah, so not at the end of this year,
Calendar year.
but yeah, at the end of the calendar year. Yep, I believe is the plan. But, and then police officer, that's I got that out there. I didn't realize we hadn't ordered it already. So I'm sure that we will have that scope released in the next couple of months, and we'll start the big recruitment. And hopefully we have as much success with police officers as we did firefighter this year. So.
All right. Back and forth. Firefighter agility update.
So I just wanted to give everybody an update that they have completed the course. So we will have our, as they had promised, they're gonna give everybody, since this is the first time that we're using this new system rather than the police push up, sit up, run scenario. The one that's testing this new agility course that they're setting up, they will be holding the mock fitness tests for everybody, the dry runs, by the middle of May, and then with the goal of letting everybody come back just after Memorial Day, probably, to actually do the one that counts. So that was a big topic of conversation late last year, so I just wanted to make sure everybody got an update on where we stand on it, and be ready to go.
And did they make those more specific changes that we've talked about?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So they did with the stair thing. It is going to be specific to certain flight of steps. They're not using a stair machine, I don't believe.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what I understood.
Yeah, that's my understanding. And then just the fact that the whole overall event is timed, whereas opposed to when we were first looking at it and we didn't have that understanding that there was an overall time that it had to be completed by. I think that resolved a lot of our questions about the new procedure.
And where are they doing it? At the
Armory, the Asa Allison
Oh,
building.
okay.
Yep. We'll make sure we give Allison Mr.
Yeah,
Allison his
yes.
due, so. Yep.
All right, good. And a CSI update. Joe?
Yeah, just quick, I had shared previously that, at Dave's, nomination, that they accepted me into the Civil Service Institute for this year, so that did begin. We've had it's a hybrid format, so they're doing some, virtual meetings, and then there's 2 weeks where there will be a couple days in person. There's been 2, like I said, the 2 that we've had, well, 3, I guess. We had an introduction, but then we did position classifications and appointments in April. We have examinations is coming up Monday, and then eligible lists later in May. But in between there is the civil service, the NISAPSCO conference. It's New York State Association of Personnel and Civil Service Officers. So that's the week of May 8th, and the in-person sessions for that kind of tie on to the tail end of that. Dave and I are planning to attend that conference. It's a good conference it provides networking opportunities, it provides learning and training opportunities, and that's just up in Saratoga, so it's not too far away. I will just say that I don't know if Dave realizes when I have the virtual sessions, but I always end up coming in and we end up talking usually about something I learned in different situations that we face here in the city. So some of these things have been timely and very helpful in having. So.
Good. And I was struck by our meeting the other day about minimum qualifications, and maybe when we get to these revised job descriptions, we could hear that, because it may affect how available transfers become to us.
Yes.
I'm still not certain I've got it quite right. So
Yeah.
Joe can, great. So, new business, promotional exams.
Okay, so we got a lot going on with the civil service of the fire department right now. So let's start off with just kind of an overall review. The idea of promotional exam and the idea of promotional qualifications that is really at the heart of the merit system in New York State, and the idea that the promotional line it is a line that should favor in-house candidates, known commodities over outside commodities, unknown commodities. In the idea that they put in the work in the department, they know not only our own operating procedures, they understand the personalities within the department and within the city. So that's really when just an overall, that's the way the state looks at promotional exams, is that when I order a promotional exam, the only thing they want to see from me is how many years of service does that person need within your organization to be eligible for the promotional exam. They don't want to see they need 5 years of experience in our department plus a master's degree. That doesn't matter. All they want to know is years of service within the city. So that's kind of the overall, just the way promotional qualifications generally work. In most scenarios, promotional qualifications don't land on job specs because you want to have some flexibility. You want to, in any given year, be able to review your pool of candidates and make a decision for that specific exam where you want to set your qualifications. You know, because one year you may need to lower it from a standard of 5 years to 4 years because you're not going to have enough of a qualified candidate pool of 5 years. In another year, you might have a more tenured staff. You might want it at 6 instead of 5. So that's generally the reason why you don't have promotional qualifications on a job spec. Exceptions to that are when you have a protracted promotional line of promotion. And the fire department's a good example of that, especially now that we're adding the lieutenant step to the process, where you potentially have part-time to firefighter as promotional. You have firefighter to fire lieutenant, now firefighter to fire captain, up to assistant chief. So the reason that I think Katie had them on there was to make sure that you had a consistent line of promotion all the way from the bottom all the way to the top. Another example would be when Katie was preparing for her departure, she put promotional qualifications on the new job specs she created for all of the human resources stuff because she wanted to take that away from us. We shouldn't be making that determination. So she put it right on the job spec for us, which was very helpful. So there are scenarios where it is helpful to have promotional qualifications on a job spec. Now in this case, the police chief is asking that we raise the promotional qualifications for this testing cycle, and his reasoning is that it's not a typical year. If we end up using the title chief fire lieutenant, if it ends up getting bargained into and they're currently negotiating a new contract, if it gets funded by the city and it becomes comes to fruition that that's a thing, and we replace the whole crew leader concept with an actual title of fire lieutenant, you're going to have 4 vacancies there. So it's an abnormal type of testing year, where in a typical testing year, you're going to maybe have a captain that you're planning on retiring, and then you know that chances are it's going to be a lieutenant moving into the captain position. In this case, we're looking to establish 4 new lieutenants, 1 for each crew. And for that reason, he decided that he wanted the qualifications to be higher than it would be in a normal testing year.
He just wants to slip crew leads right into the lieutenant spot.
Well, he doesn't want that. He doesn't he doesn't want to give undue advantage to the folks that are currently crew leaders.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. He wants it so that they qualify.
He wants to make sure that they all qualify, absolutely, but also, he also wants to make sure that you don't have all of a sudden like a bunch of 5-year guys do really well on this test, and then you have a bunch of 5-year guys that are only eligible for the promotions. Again, it's one thing to have a 5-year guy as a lieutenant if that's what this normal requirement is going to be, when you have 3 other lieutenants, I should say, that are more senior guys. He feels like because we're establishing the whole pool of lieutenants, he wants that to be a higher qualification. So generally, we wouldn't be bringing this request to you. Generally, this, to me, is an appointing authority decision. It's a Greg decision. If he feels that that's appropriate in most years, we just say, okay, let's do it. If that's what the appointing authority wants and it's within reason, then yeah. Here, I have to bring it to you guys because it is on the job spec. And so in order to be able to accommodate the chief's request, I have to ask you guys to remove the promotional qualifications from the existing job specs.
Just seems really weird.
Okay.
Because a year from now, if that position's open, that job spec wouldn't apply. Because the chief may want it out every year, so you're going to change the job description next year. So it just seems a little strange.
Yeah, I think that if you go back to why the conversation is, why do we want lieutenants instead of crew leaders? And part of it goes back to the root of in 2019, I believe it was, the state mandated minimum requirements for fire chief. They decided that, okay, these are gonna be the requirements for fire chief. Civil service agencies, you don't have the opportunity to set those requirements anymore. And they're high. They're not easy to achieve those minimum requirements. So part of the reason that we want to establish the lieutenant position is to build that line of succession up to chief, to make sure that we have folks that have enough years of service in a supervisory position to at some point qualify for chief. And if we can start that a little younger in their career, then that's the purpose for going away from crew leader position, which isn't a position, it's just a firefighter who's in charge, officer in charge for a day.
The
To
lieutenant thing sounds good, just the
Okay.
this year thing about, we're gonna put a standard here, but in the future, it may not be that standard.
Yeah, yeah.
Just- It seems like you put a job description, the reason to change it would be because of attitudes, that particular area should be about, well, what's the conditions of the working environment? Do you do 5 years or 8 years?
Mhm.
Put that in a job description, but if you're saying, well, this year, because it is, I get it, it's a title change, you're going to lieutenant, you want the same guys that are doing the leadership role to be in that same role, that makes sense, but then you're gonna bake in this requirement that doesn't actually, the way you're describing it, doesn't sound like it belongs there.
Yeah,
The chief can make their own determination, why don't I see why, if you put it in the job description, you can change it again.
yeah. And I don't wanna give the interpretation that the chief made the decision unilaterally either. You know, he brought the request to me, I shared him with my opinion that I think that this is something that we need to discuss as a city, and that's, he brought, you know, we had a meeting with Greg and Joe, and I was there representing civil service, but they very much talked specifically about the goals of the department and the reasoning for it, and it was,
I get your reason, that
Yeah.
all makes sense to me, it just seems like he's trying to bake this in there so he doesn't have to have a hard conversation.
yeah, yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Excuse me, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry.
We don't have promotional requirements in job descriptions many other places, is that correct?
As far, the only ones that I can think of off the top of my head are the HR jobs that you guys passed last year ahead of Katie's departure, and these jobs. There is also, I believe, one of the old, I was looking at account clerk, I believe, and it was on there, and I was kind of surprised that it listed it on there, and that job spec hasn't been touched in so many years that, who knows why that one was there. But like, to use a perfect parallel, police department, they are not on the police department's, job specs. So
And-
police sergeant doesn't list it, you know, fire chief doesn't list, or police chief doesn't list it. And if you go back to a couple of years ago, when we were looking to replace, to fill the vacancy when, Chief Brenner retired, Katie did come to me and say, listen, I need to recuse myself from this, I have a really close working relationship with everybody at the police department, I want you to set the promotional qualifications for this exam, and she asked me to do that, and it was one of those situations where, okay, let's look at the specific exam, where the department is right now, where do we want to set these promotional exams, and that's how we set them for that specific round of testing. It was completely based on a situational basis. Because when you have a vacancy like that occur,
That wasn't the job specs, that was.
it was, at that point, it was not in the job spec.
Yes,
Correct.
that's a difference.
Yep, that is the difference, yep.
Are there challenges made ever? Because it seems like you could go year to year, well, let's beef them up this year because we don't like this guy.
Yeah, I don't think ever had it happen here. But you could certainly see where you could, and I think that's why it's important, that distinction, that the decision to back this and the permission that I got wasn't from the fire chief to bring it to this commission, it was from our appointing authority, it was from City Administrator Tice. And that in that case, we do need to trust in the fact that, that decision's being made at a much higher level than a departmental level, and hopefully in an ideal situation that takes the departmental politics, like you're saying, out of it, where there isn't any favoritism and there isn't anything like that, so.
So if you qualify to take the promotional exam, if you pass the promotional exam, you're more reachable than anybody who would take the open exam.
Correct. And we're not gonna offer an open competitive exam for this, it is going to be only a promotional exam. We've never offered an open competitive exam, to my knowledge, for promotional jobs within the fire service, in the middle promotional stuff. We've done it for fire chief and for police chief, but definitely not for police lieutenant or police sergeant or fire captain. But yeah, so the pecking order would be that if you had both an active promotion and open competitive list, that you had to get to the point where the promotional list was non-mandatory before you could go to the open competitive list. Yeah, the promotional list takes precedence. Existence of a
So if everybody failed the promotional exam,
yes, then we probably look to order an open competitive exam.
can we cover this under one motion, and I move that we remove the promotional requirements from the two job descriptions?
Any second?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood, I think you put them in.
Oh, no, they're already in there, I'm asking to have them removed. Yeah, so, yeah,
Okay, yes, that's what you said,
okay,
you
yeah,
see it right now.
okay.
I think, I don't know if you mentioned it, but I think it was, do you wanna say why they were in originally? Cause I think it had to do with a clear line of promotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of it, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep,
So this is more returning to standard than.
right, yeah,
Yeah, this, okay, so if someone's super eager to move up the channel, they can see the pathway.
yeah, and like with the requirement to have that certification of, and I'm slipping my mind the actual title of it, but Fire Officer 3 or something like that. I mean, there's only a couple of people that could qualify for that in this area right now. Like even Chief Pigeon, who did a wonderful job for us, I don't believe he qualifies to be an open competitive candidate for firefighter. He qualifies
Fire chief.
for fire chief, yeah, for fire chief, you know. Jim Maloney does, there's some people out there in this area that do, but, you know, at the time that we promoted, you know, Fire Chief Knapp, we knew that we needed to get somebody off that list that we had established prior to that law coming into effect, because it was gonna be very, very difficult, even open competitive statewide headhunting scenario to get somebody that meets those new requirements, so, but,
First, did you say that?
I second it,
Yeah.
yeah.
okay. Beautiful.
Anything else at vote?
Yeah,
Aye.
okay. So the other part of this to discuss today is that I unexpectedly received scores for firefighter yesterday. Unfortunately, it being payroll week and a very busy day today, there was absolutely no way I was going to be able to present this commission with a list for firefighter today. That being said, I don't want to wait a month to establish this list because I don't want us to get too far behind other communities. So what I'd like to request is if we can hold off the discussion till the end of the meeting, if we can look for a date, maybe 2 weeks down the road, where we can look for us to hold a special meeting for the month of May that's a little earlier than our usual one. And I will look to put as much regular business on there as well, and hopefully we can hold a specially scheduled meeting, but then cancel our regular meeting. We'll still only have one meeting in May.
Just move it up.
Yeah, I want to move it up by a couple of weeks if that can work for people. So that we're not waiting a full month after these scores dropped to start recruiting and get somebody in.
We can't just all look at it by email and.
Yeah, we need to do it in an open meeting, is what I've been told, so, yeah,
To authorize the eligible list.
to authorize that eligible list, yeah, yeah. So, but I wanted to put that out there and make sure that, yeah, that, like I said, it dropped, it wasn't yesterday, it was the day before yesterday, but
I
still.
think at the end of the day.
It was towards the end of the day, like as we were closing up. I haven't even looked at the scores yet. I don't want to, you know, because I've had people calling already. They heard that they're out. And I didn't want to get into that before the list is established. And I have a chance to look at it very closely because it's 59 people on that list. I don't want to make any mistakes. So, Yeah. A little more complicated than putting this two together for you that we did today, so. But,
Well, it would have to be the week of the 15th for me,
okay,
not the 7th.
okay.
So I would, yeah, so
So like
we did the 15th.
2 weeks from today, would that work from a scheduling standpoint for this room, Karen?
15th.
Oh, that would be, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, 15th is wide open.
Is
That's a
that-
Monday.
Okay, that's a Monday?
Tuesday I can do a 4 o'clock. And Thursday is wide open.
Okay.
There's
Monday
also
to Thursday
Wednesday,
would be
May
best
3rd.
for me.
Monday?
Thursday?
Monday to Thursday, or Thursday.
Monday or Thursday? What time on Monday?
I can do any time on Monday.
If it's being held as a special meeting, we don't actually have to hold the 4 o'clock thing, right?
No, you could decide now to move any of your meetings to a different time.
Okay.
Yeah. They're-
Well, Tuesday if it was later,
Tuesday's a council night.
yeah, they could postpone that.
Yeah,
I think so.
for us, for sure. Well, how about that Monday? Or,
You could also do Wednesday the 3rd.
oh wait,
Monday should work for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
5:15,
Monday's good.
4 PM?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There we go. That saves us a conversation at the end of the meeting. And Carrie, do you think the best thing to do then is just we're moving the regular meeting to that date
Yeah, I can relocate
rather
it.
than a special meeting? Okay.
Reschedule if you want. Sure.
Okay.
That'll make Bonnie very happy.
It's
She
May
just
Day,
sent the
right?
calendar.
May 1st,
May 15th
or 15th, oh, sorry.
at 4 o'clock.
Okay. We're done with fire department. We can move on to OPT if you'd like.
All right. That's the job description for transit working supervisor.
Transit working supervisor, yeah. My favorite job spec, because it's my first. So transit working supervisor, so OPT. Back in the fall, we talked about OPT succession planning, and we had the retirement of Jim Schofield, who had been here for 20 years, risen up through the ranks, and was a very important person in that department. We had attempted he had given us lots of advance notice of his pending retirement, and we had made several unsuccessful recruitments to that job title, transit working supervisor. So what we ended up doing is we had another title, transit coordinator, which is held by Kelly Senhouse, and we decided we were going to use that job title and attempt to recruit to that job title, and that we would split the duties, Jim's duties, between a driver and a second transit coordinator. And we ended up, we're very fortunate to hire former city clerk Nancy Powell to that position, but she is very much a short-term solution. She's already retired once. She doesn't plan on working a ton of years at OPT. So she has made it known that she plans on re-retiring, if you will, at the end of 2024. So we need to start looking now at what we're going to do at OPT. And then on top of that, Dave Hoteling hasn't made it any secret that he doesn't plan on sticking around for much longer than 5 or 6 years. So we really need to think about overall succession planning in OPT. So Dave has, the finance discussion was an open session, right? With that position?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. It was just
So-
the finance committee.
Finance committee, yeah. So Dave and Ginny took a discussion to the finance committee at their last meeting regarding taking one of our vacancies at bus driver and changing that to transit working supervisor immediately and starting training on what will essentially be Nancy's replacement, and get somebody in as quickly as we can. And they were good with that. OPT has it within their budget, and I think we're good to move forward from a recruitment standpoint. So, in order to have a successful recruitment, we need to look at the minimum qualifications for this position, because obviously we've had multiple unsuccessful recruitments. So I wanted to look at the minimum qualifications. I sat down with Dave, and the two requests that he made was first to broaden the scope of people we're looking at, from people specifically in transit service, fixed route bus service, to folks that are dealing with CDLs, but not necessarily there. So he talked about people that have a background in trucking. He talked about people that may have experience, running taxi companies, things like that. So he wanted me to broaden the minimum requirements there, so it wasn't so focused on the very ambiguous term transit operations. So that was his first request. The second request was to change the special requirement, which had been set that the person at time of application have a 19A certification. That is the certification in New York State that our folks need to ensure our short compliance of our bus drivers with the medical standards that are required, and with the training that goes into becoming a bus driver. So instead of that being done at appointment, he wanted to give the person 2 years from coming in to get that, because it takes a long time right now to go through all the process to become fully certified as a 19A trainer. And currently we have one of our bus drivers that is our 19th person that is responsible for 19A. Because the only other person we have that has that capability is Transit Director Hotown himself. So that's his plan, to try to recruit to this position and get somebody and start grooming them now, and then eventually we'll transition into the replacement for Nancy when she retires. So that's kind of the background and everything that's going on at OPT and why we're asking for these changes. Any questions?
So we're lowering the minimum qualifications.
We are lowering the minimum qualifications. Yeah, or at the very least, lowering the special requirements and broadening the minimum qualifications. I think that somebody that deals with CDLs in any capacity can come in and very easily learn, translate that knowledge to our operations at OPT. So I think that from that standpoint, saying broadening instead of lowering is fair.
Need a motion?
Yeah.
Motion. Accept the application.
Second.
Okay. So, okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Code enforcement.
This one's much simpler, so,
Seems to be.
yeah, again, as we stated in our goals at the beginning of the year, as new tests arise, we want to take a nice close look at job specs before we order them. A request has come to order the code enforcement inspector exam from our code enforcement office as succession planning. We anticipate a retirement within the next year or two in that department. And that's why we're ordering the exam. For the most part, we didn't make a ton of, big changes here. I cleaned up some language. I am very much hoping that we can improve the quality of our tests by taking out what the state deems as ambiguous pronouns from job specs. So I replaced the word prepare, I believe, a lot, for prepare, which is a verb that the state doesn't like to see in job specs very much.
Notice they took out the ability to read and write legibly.
Yes. So that's not something that needs to be stated, I don't think, anymore. we can evaluate that during a probationary process. And it's awfully hard to take an exam if
I like
that's
to
not
smile
the
and
case.
take another job.
Yeah.
If you don't need the ability to read and write, no.
Mhm.
But it's,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the other one, you know, that need modernization is the physical agility, physical ability commensurate with the job, or however that was worded.
Physical condition.
Good physical condition, yeah, they want that more specific these days, they want it, so that's why I replaced that with the ability to, you know, go into a crawl space or climb a ladder. So again, that's just overall modernization of this job spec. And, oh, and the special requirements we added too, we want our code enforcement officers now, we want them to have a driver's license. That was not something that has been on job specs in the past, but obviously it's very important. You know, we need our code enforcement officers being ferried around in taxis, from site to site. And then it wasn't in there before that they had to, within a certain amount of time of being hired, achieve the certification they need to be able to have the authority to do these inspections. So that actually, the law is changing effective tomorrow. As of right now, the minimum, the law states that they need 18 months, that they have an 18-month lead time, but as of tomorrow, that's dropping to 12 months. This is what I've set it at. Yeah. So.
I'll move to adopt the changes to the code enforcement inspector.
Second.
The nice SAPCO Civil Service Conference.
I like to think that the first S is being silent.
How do you say it?
NIAPSCO is how most of the folks. NIAPSCO, yeah, is how. So.
Then you have to explain the S is silent, so here we go.
So, I just wanted to make sure, you know, Joe had touched
Yeah,
on
I'm sorry,
it.
I kind of-
That's okay. We will be attending the conference this year. We haven't been able to in the last couple of years. Katie had gone one of her first couple of years here. But I think with the fact that Joe and I are both learning our new roles, I think it's very important that, and things are changing so much in civil service right now with all the new programs out there, and so getting out there and having the ability, you know, the opportunity to learn about the HELP program in detail, you know, which is we are very likely going to need to use or want to use, that's the program that's going to allow us to appoint civilian dispatchers non-competitively with competitive rights. So that's something that I'll be asking probably in the next couple of months for us to hold a public hearing and make a rules modification to our rules to allow that. But you know, it's a new program. There's a lot of people that will have questions on it, and there's just lots of stuff going on. You know, another example is the police officer, the local police officer exam that was held at the state level this year. You know, it's very complicated stuff, and being able to learn about it from the folks in Albany will be really valuable. So,
Well, good luck.
thank you.
All right, well, that being said, I have it at 4:39 and move to adjourn the meeting until May 14th?
15.
15th, thank you.
14th is Mother's Day.